Om Shri Sairam. Sairam, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the 16th edition of Samarpan program here at Sarvadharma Service Center in Farmingdale Borough, Howell Township, New Jersey, United States. Today, I have the honor to introduce our Samarpan speaker for the month, Shri Gopal Kalluri, who has consented to speak to us on a very extremely short notice, and we deeply appreciate your acceptance of such a literally last-minute invitation. Shri Gopal Kalluri is the son of late Mr. Kalluri Suryanarayana and Srimati Ramani Suryanarayana from Bangalore. His grandfather was the late Padma Shri Kalluri Gopal Rao, who was the former chairman of Andhra Bank. His father, Suryanarayana Garu, was the first in their family to come to Swami in the year 1964. Suryanarayana Garu and his family were very close to Swami ever since, as you will know and hear from the talk. In the year 1972, the Kalluri family moved to Bangalore from Chennai, primarily to be physically close to Swami. Brother Gopal got very close to Swami, particularly in the year 1976, when Swami granted his grandfather a cottage in Vrindavan Ashram. From there on, there were several experiences that the entire family had with Swami. Brother Gopal moved to the United States in 1991. Education-wise, Brother Gopal has a bachelor's degree in engineering from Bangalore University, followed by a master's of science in management systems analysis from Keene University, New Jersey. Professionally, he initially started in the information technology field in the pharmaceutical industry, and then moved on to the healthcare industry for the last 23 years. On the Sai front, Brother Gopal visited India regularly, especially during Swami's major birthdays of 1985, 90, and every 5 years until 2010. Brother Gopal is a Hindustani classical tabla player, as we have seen him today play during our bhajans. What a wonderful bhajan we had. He started learning in the year 1978 and has played in Prashanthi Nilayam in front of Swami several times. Actually, brother, I remember seeing you also there. We were all younger, and but the face is still the same, so I can still remember that. He was part of the orchestra for the bhajans recorded by the original Vrindavan Bhajan group in the year 1984. Swami released that cassette later in the same year. The late Dr. Padmanabhan Garu was behind the production at Swami's directive. Brother Gopal has also taught tabla skill to many of our Sai students here. With this, I would like to invite Brother Gopal Kalluri to the podium and request him to share with us his experience with Swami for the next 70 minutes or so. Welcome, Brother Gopal. Sairam.
Perhaps this talk was arranged, definitely, I would say, by Bhagavan. And the reason is, it's more a therapy for me, because something happened, and this happened just, a few days ago. You see, last year, August 31st, my father passed away. My father was truly close to Swami, and he knew, Swami to be Bhagavan. And there is a very great incident that happened, and I'll mention it to you. You see, in the house of Venkatamuni Garu in Madras, what happened was, one day Swami was just sitting, and of course, the dignitaries of Madras, and including my father, was there. In those days, though you had a lot of people, actually the crowd was a lot more manageable, so you could sit in the houses of some people, eminent people, like Venkatamuni Garu in Madras. And Swami was just discussing, the various avatars, or you could say great people, who have come and gone in history. And in saying what he said, suddenly he turned and he said, he started to just discuss, for example, he started with the man we call Jesus, but actually his name is Yesu. So Swami always called him Yesu. He said, well, yeah, he was a great man. And somebody said, Swami, what about Mahatma Gandhi? Yes, he's a great man. And so on and so forth. And suddenly Swami stopped everything and said, but you know something? I'm far away from all these people. I'm so far that you cannot even imagine. Nobody comes to my, should we say, my state. I'm alone in my state. Nobody's there. This is what he said. In that moment, my father suddenly realized who he was looking at. When Swami said this, he was simply stunned, and he was a young man, my father. See, at that time, my father was, happy-go-lucky, very popular gentleman in his circle of friends. And I'll now kind of discuss as to how, this whole thing changed and, how Swami actually, engineered everything. So my earliest childhood memories are as such. When I was born in the same year, 1964. My father had visited Swami during the Sivaratri celebrations the same year, earlier in February. And see, I was born into a family where my first memories are I saw a lot of photos in our God's room. And there, you see Mahavishnu, you'll see Lord Shiva, you'll see Brahmadeva, and a lot of Swami's photos. So for me, it was natural that I just, naturally respected, whatever I was looking at. I had no real idea, but that's where I was growing up. And I remember going to many, many functions, where Swami would come in Madras. He would come very often to Abbotsbury and, we'd be there. And it was one of the most wonderful times. One of the wonderful things I remember about that period was, Swami was very young. He was like lightning, physically. He was so quick, you can't imagine. And see the crowd, you'd see a crowd come up, and then after some time, people would leave. And Swami is still there, and you could still get to him. Now, this was our state. My father was, I remember that very often on the weekends we found him missing because Saturday night he has left, he's gone away to Puttaparthi. He's gone to go and see Swami. He couldn't help it. But as to how he came into touch with Swami first, here is how it happened. In the year 1963, what happened was, my father's kind of second cousin, or you could say slightly distant cousin, and his wife, they had visited Tirumala. Now, on the way down from Tirumala, what happened was, his wife, that is my father's cousin's wife, suddenly started talking about a young man in Andhra Pradesh who can literally materialize anything. And, at the mere touch of anything, his hand, she says, basket of laddus was materialized. Or, for example, he just looks at someone and they're cured. The thing is, things like this. My father was in the back seat hearing this as they were coming down from Tirumala, and he couldn't believe it. He was, after all, a mechanical engineer who had been the second batch, IIT Kharagpur. And you can't say that he was necessarily skeptic or anything, but he was not a believer. He just, was somebody who watched. But hearing this, he was wonderstruck. And he wondered, is this even possible? Then, they all came back to Madras and nothing happened. And he forgot about it. And then in January, the same cousin said, listen, the whole bunch of us, we're all going, to Puttaparthi to see Swami. So why don't you just come with us and give us the happiness of your company? So my father said, oh, okay, fine, and they all went. My father told me, he said, first thing, they arrived in Puttaparthi. First thing he went to do was to go and see if he could find some accommodation. In those days, the accommodation office was not where you are currently, located. That came much a little later. In 1964, it was actually in the region of South Prasanthi, in that side. He went looking there, but it was too late because they had arrived in the evening. And actually, Vibhuti Abhishekam was going on. Swami was doing the Vibhuti Abhishekam, with the pot upturned over the idol of Shirdi Baba. What happened was my father first didn't see that, but on the way back from his, wherever he was trying to look for the accommodation office, he suddenly found, oh my word, I'm looking at somebody. And he went closer, and as he went closer, he saw this stunning sight. Kasturi Garu was holding the pot, above the idol of Shirdi Baba, and my Swami was, moving his hand inside. And at a tremendous speed, the Vibhuti was coming down. It was raining Vibhuti. And Swami suddenly stopped, that, and looked directly at my father. Now, remember, the crowd is on the other side, and, my father's behind the stage. Swami just stopped and looked at him. And it was just instantaneous. The eyes met. And Swami didn't say yes, no, good, bad, go here, do that, nothing. He just looked at him. And then what happened was, my father appeared to be slightly on the lady's side from where, they were seated. And a lot of people said, no, come this side, come this side. He said, okay. And so he went, and this time he arrived, and their car was parked not too far actually from that pandal. So again, from there, he just got down and, he looked at Swami, and Swami again stopped and looked directly at him, and he said twice that happened. Now on the way back, once this was all over, my cousin's mother asked my father, what do you think about what you saw? My father said, there's no doubt in my mind, I've seen a great Shakti. There's no doubt. I've seen something extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. She said, I didn't feel anything. He said, I can't explain it. This is my feeling. So from there, he began to visit Bhagavan more and more. And one of the incidents associated with me, which my parents state, is that once they were at the home of Venkatamani Garu, and Swami was actually singing bhajans. They may have been maybe about 15, 20 people on both sides, maximum, not more. I was a young baby, and one of the things that used to happen was in my father's pocket there was a pen. So I used to play with that pen, small baby. So what happened was, Swami was singing, I appeared to like the bhajan, and I suppose my sense of rhythm was there even at that time. So I suddenly jumped out, pulled the pen from my father and started moving it like a conductor. And Swami laughed and said, look, there he is. He's conducting the bhajans. This is one memory my parents had. And then there were two ceremonies that happened, in the 1960s. Swami came home, actually to our home in Madras. And it's a very interesting thing. Swami invited himself home. Can you believe that? Normally people go and say, Swami, please come home. This was the other way around. He told my father, I am coming to your home. And so he came, and during that the first visit, I remember very clearly that Swami performed the naming ceremony of my younger brother, Kishore. And he said in Telugu, in fact, he asked my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, how do you name it in Telugu? మీ ఇంట్లో పిల్లలకి ఎలా పేరు పెడతారు? This is what he asked. Then my grandmother responded, Swami, generally if it's male child, first child is named after the paternal grandfather, and the second son is named after the maternal grandfather. Then he said, oh, okay. Then he said, సరే ఈ పిల్లడి పేరు కృష్ణ కిషోర్ అని పెట్టుకుందాం. Kishore ani pilavatsu, Krishna ani pilavatsu. This is what he said. I was right there. I remember that. Then he did Akshara Abhyasam for me. Om Sri Ram. That's what he wrote. I couldn't even say it. I was so shy that day. Now, once Swami said, I'm coming, and then he never came. And he never came home for some reason. This was it. And I still remember the food was ready, everything was ready. But for some reason that day, the second time, he never came that day. In the year 1971, we had 3 interviews with Swami. And they all came one behind the other. It had to do with my health at the time as a young boy. There were some problems I had. And then my third brother had just been born. So it was a very interesting scene if you had come to Prasad Nilayam in those days. Now, one of the things that I remember was, I don't even know, this is all his big drama, right? Bhagwan is Bhagwan. See, in front of the actual interview door, he had people, the families seated one behind the other. And he was calling them. There's so many families who had come, and we were in that line. And I don't know if any of you know this, but see, by default, my father had submitted himself to Bhagwan. That was it. But when you do something like this, you come with the entire family, the family is also submitted. Whether or not, they believe it, doesn't matter. By default, it is over. What does it mean? We were very lucky. We were a small set of families at that time. And we were given, this opportunity, and it was entirely Bhagwan's grace. I mean, I don't know, what we did, previously to deserve it. I have no idea. But because of that supreme super grace, we were all called. And then he called us, literally, we went morning, evening, morning on 2 days. And I mean, as a boy, I still remember he, in that interview room, when we got close there, immediately, he looked at me and pinched my cheek. He asked me, as if he doesn't know, just to make, conversation. And, my health was discussed, but I had no idea what was going on. I was too young, to understand. And my youngest brother's Annaprasnam ceremony was held the next day morning. Imagine, we didn't even have milk and rice. In fact, he was asking us, can you get milk and rice anywhere? Luckily, we were staying with a lady, and now, of course, those rooms are gone. If you were going up, to the old hospital in Puttaparthi, those rooms were actually to the left. That's where we were staying, and we were not actually even sleeping inside the room. We were all sleeping outside the room. The lady was very kind, and she said, okay, we'll boil some milk and rice, and gave it to my mother. And that's how my Annaprasnam ceremony of my brother was done. Then moving on, see, Puttaparthi at that time was one of the most beautiful places. It wasn't, nowadays, I mean, look, around about the year 73 or 74, the outer look of the mandir changed. You have all these various, carvings and who knows what all, they're all out there. It was made to look like a classic temple. But before that, it was actually a home. And I'm not able to, in any fashion, convey to you what a lovely feeling it was. It was as if you had come to your own home. It was as if you were looking. Swami never made us feel as if, I am staying in Prashant Nilayam, you're all coming to see me. No. My own people are coming to see me. If he could keep you inside, he would in a heartbeat. That's how it was, and very, very loving. And Swami actually was, in the 1960s, I'm probably one of the few people left. I don't know if how many people visited Swami here in the 1960s. As a child, I can remember Swami was slow. He was not quick. Meaning to say, he took his time to address people because there were not that many people there. And my father once said, and one thing that he saw consistently with Bhagwan. There could be 4 people standing, there could be 1,000, there could be 4,000, who knows how many. Talk to you, he will pick you out. If he doesn't want to talk to you, he will not talk. That's it. This was Swami. My own observation of Swami from a child until Swami officially gave up the avatar, so to speak, is that Swami never changed. Everybody who came changed. They are the people who are changing, this way, that way, this way, that way. Swami never changed. Swami is always constant. Same. His behavior was same, outlook same, everything same. And most remarkable, and I don't know how many people again get it. See, in human life, we go left and right. We keep going. It's very difficult to sit in the center. That center is the center of bliss in anyone. This left and right is essential if you want a drama. If you don't want a drama, it is not there. Immediately everything dissolves, everything is over. If everyone realized who they were, then there's nothing left. So we keep going left and right. But it is in that we understand and appreciate. Swami loves us unconditionally. He, unlike people in the world who say, if you do this, you're out. No. Swami is different. Swami has no such things, actually. Sure, at one time he might say, you're out, but then another day comes, and if you come back, he won't say that, you shouldn't have come back. It was so beautiful. And that unconditional love has actually amazed me through the years, because when we are exposed to our own mistakes, when we are exposed to our own shortcomings, and you understand that as you get older, you look back and then you say, oh my word, I don't even know how Swami loved me. Oh, you know why Swami loves you? Because, see, from his point of view, I realized he can't help it. He's actually us. We are actually him. And that was the other thing. You see, in Madras, we had all these people, sometimes they used to call them Vadyars. And Vadyar means, the people who know something, some kind of shastrik. You call it a mantra, you call it music, it could be anything. These people, were there. They would come home and, they wanted respect. Because I suppose they were not getting enough respect in those days. But again, Swami's behavior was so much in contrast with anyone I knew. He never asked for respect. He never said, come and respect me. You naturally respected him. And why was that? That was because of his unconditional love. And because of his beautiful, balanced life that he always led. This is what I could say. And the other thing with Swami was he was a minimalist. He was very clear that Swami was very simple. In those days, we went into the interview room, the chair that he had was a simple chair. There was a nice, small footstool somebody had put, maybe a small cushion on it, that's all. Swami, in fact, he didn't even sit on that chair. When we went in, he sat, it was actually on top of a dais. He sat on the dais and he talked to us. He lit almost sitting on the floor with us. This is how he was. There's one particular memory I have back in Puttaparthi at that time, and that is that I remember, we met a black lady and her daughter from Africa. And I was playing as a small kid with that lady's daughter on a small scooter that we had. We'd push it up the hill and then come down. This is what we were doing. In 1969-70, my father decided that he wanted to set up a small-scale unit in Bangalore because he didn't want to be with his company anymore. He felt that they would never give him, or compensate him the way he wanted to be compensated. So he wanted to move out. Swami tried to dissuade him and say that, listen, you shouldn't do it and all that. And, there's a test both ways. But he wanted to be, very close to Bhagwan. He was not interested anymore. And when I asked him once, about this decision a few years ago, he said, look, very simple. Everyone is holding their hands out at the feet of the master, and they're all asking him for money. Why don't I just go straight to the master? I'm not interested in, going through all these other intermediaries you're calling companies. I'll go straight to him. It's okay. If there's a company, I'll set it up there. It's okay. No problem. Whatever that may be. He also had he thought that if he could set it up and help a few people locally, maybe that's also a good idea. This is how he thought. Swami actually tried to dissuade him and say, listen, no, your company where you're working, which was Ashok Leyland at the time, will give you, they'll promote you, they'll give you all the money you want, this and that. He was telling him, he said, no, I'll come and be with you. And in the 1990s, what happened was, my brother by that time had joined Swami's college. And one day in a Trai session, Swami actually described this whole event to all the students. In Telugu, he said, వీడి నాన్నగారు నా వెనకాతల పరిగెత్తుకుంటూ వచ్చేసాడు, మీనింగ్ he came running behind me, this boy's father. He wanted to be with me. నేను ఎంతో చెప్పాను, don't leave that Ashok Leyland company because they'll give you whatever you want. But no, he came away behind me. He wanted me. And see, it's a test. It's a massive test, because if you so much, even after Bhagavan telling you you're giving up and you're still running after him, you are going to face trouble. And so we all faced a lot of trouble. The family went through a lot of trouble in those days, especially with that small scale unit. But Swami, Swami is not enamored by success or failure. He doesn't guarantee success or failure in this world. These things are external. They will continue to happen each at their own pace. It makes no difference to Bhagavan. Then the question is, what is Swami, how does he help anyone? Swami helps all of us by reminding us that we are all him, that we are all actually God. This is Swami's, this is the very basic function of an avatar, no matter what we think. He's come to remind us that we are all divine. Now, when that factory was established in 1975, there was a little bit of an issue with the way that Sankusthāpanam, as we call it, was done. It was not done exactly per Swami's, I will say that my father was anxious to get it done because he just wanted to get the whole thing, kind of going. But one thing he did, he may have finished the Sankusthāpanam, but he did not start the factory. He didn't do anything. And Swami, was very peculiar. So what he did was, my father would go every day to Vrindavan. He was staying in Bangalore and going to Vrindavan. And he was sitting there and, every day he was waiting for Swami. And then Swami would come and say, Swami, can I start the factory? Swami would say nothing and go away. That's it. I mean, Swami didn't say anything and just went away. Then this went on for some time. No, this went on for 6 months. Suddenly in that 6th month, Swami came out one day and my father said, Swami, can I start? He said, what, you haven't started? This is how Swami, what, you haven't started? Go. Start the factory. And so that is how it started. So while the physical Sankusthāpanam, that function, Swami didn't come, but he gave us permission to start the factory. Then this function that I'm, now going to, then we can switch to the laptop. Okay. So, very good. What happened was, my father was somehow angling for Swami to come to the factory and bless it. So then Swami said, okay, I'll come. And one day he came. And this is how it happened. By that time, my grandfather and my grandmother, my father's parents, they were now in Bangalore with us. And Swami had actually allocated our current cottage or room, you would say, in Puttaparthi. And he did it for my grandmother. See, in those days, if right opposite, the room, there was actually like a gattu, as we say, just like a ledge. And he told my grandmother, he said, just go and sit there. You don't have to come to darshan. He said, from there, when I come out, you can see me clearly. You don't have to come. And the walls were also not there around Prashant Nilayam. So everything was open. So you can clearly see Swami. So actually, he gave that room for her, allocated. And then later in that same year, he came, and you can clearly see my father's very happy. Swami came, and right at that point, where Swami is standing, which is the next photograph, just want to draw your attention to a point. That building is still there, even after all this time. And what happened was, Swami looked away to his right. If you look to your right at that time, from where Swami is standing right there, that you could literally see from the old HAL airport, from where planes used to take off and land. That airport actually more or less could be seen, and it was a beautiful scenery. And of all things, Swami said in 1975 in Kannada, "Ella hardu madidare." It means they've destroyed everything. We were just wonderstruck. What do you mean, Swami? Except now you go and see is exactly correct. You can't, between that point and that airport, you can't see the airport is full of buildings, it's been destroyed. That's what Swami meant. It's full of, buildings, and the beauty of the landscape has been lost. But this is Swami coming into our factory. This was a beautiful close experience. We were all with him. And with her back to the camera is actually my grandmother. The old, right here. She's holding a plate, with offerings to Swami as he came in. And this is a photo of my grandfather, Swami, and my father. And very, very beautiful, happy day. And you can clearly see the smiles, especially on my grandfather and father's faces. Same picture, there was a Polaroid photographer going with Swami, his own student. So he took a photograph, and later he gave us this photograph. All the workers had come, and I want to point out that there were students that Swami had sent from his college to work in our factory. They were his representatives. This is, sorry. So this is Prakash. I think his name was Lingan, and this is Chandrasekhar. These are the other locals, who were local at that time. And at the back, partially seen is Shanmugam. So these are the four people who I remember very clearly coming. And Swami, was so keen to see his students pick up skills. So he was, this training was priceless, that too coming from my father directly. And this is Shanmugam, better shot of Shanmugam working. And these were some of the parts, the auto parts being produced at the time, and Swami was so kind. And, he blessed the factory. And oh yes, this is a very good photo. There's my grandmother. And you may say, young boy sitting at the back here. You see this? That young boy is me, wondering what's going to happen in the future. There it is. I was there that day. Some other people, I think some people who had something to do with the factory, they came. Swami was going around blessing everybody. Swami's look is enough, actually. Even if he just looks in your direction, he has blessed you. And then, of course, this is a photograph of the family, plus my cousin was here. So all of us stood next to Swami in my father's office room and this chair had been arranged so that Swami could, and here's the same one in color. This is a photo of Swami, and I tried to take this and to show you why. You see, if you look around Swami's head here, there's a halo. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a clear halo. This is my grandfather and my grandmother. It's a priceless photo that we have in our home. My maternal grandmother and my aunt and her third son. With my father, and then finally Swami meeting all the, he met with all the, he gave some gifts that my father had bought so that could be distributed amongst all the workers. And finally Swami departed. If you actually go and stand there today, it's impossible to imagine that this is the same place. Because this looks huge when you look at it because pretty open. That one, oh no. I mean, that was pretty much, shall we say, now it's got buildings all over. So in 1976, what happened was we visited after my grandmother's passing away, which was again a very traumatic experience for all of us because she suddenly passed off. That year, Swami called us for an interview on the 13th day. So we all went after all the ceremonies and we were sitting with him. And very memorable for this reason. My grandfather was heartbroken at the time and, fell at Swami's feet crying. But Swami, he didn't give him any sympathy. In Telugu, he said, Gopal Rao, inkod gurinchi anukovatsu. Aina nuvu oka pedda gyani. Ademtidi enti edupulu? Meaning to say, I can think of anyone else. Maybe they'll all be crying, but you're a big, knowledgeable person. And what is this crying from you? The reason why my grandfather was so heartbroken was this. He got married to my grandmother when they were very young. They were literally tied at the hip, so to speak. They were one and the same person in many ways. You didn't have to say one. They knew exactly what the other one was thinking at any given point in time. This is how they were, and they were inseparable. And in love with each other, you cannot imagine how much they were in love with each other. So when she departed, naturally he was broken. Lord Swami didn't give him any sympathy. Swami, made him tough right there. He was very tough on him. Meaning to say, very lovingly, but he said, come on, you got to pick yourself up. And in that interview, he said, see, look, Gopal Rao, I'm doing so many activities. If Bhagavantam is right hand, you're my left hand. He was telling him. And he said, see, look, I'll keep you involved in all these activities that we have. No. You won't have time to sit here, moaning about your wife. And at that time, this happened. My father's younger brother was there, and there was a bit of a misunderstanding between him and my grandfather. They didn't get along. And if my grandfather was worshipping Satya Sai Baba, he was worshipping Shirdi Sai, as if to somebody else. So my grandfather said, Swami, he's a great devotee of Shirdi Sai Baba. And then Swami, Baba, Ye Baba, he declared, that Baba is this Baba. I was a 12-year-old boy watching him, just behind my uncle. I suddenly realized, only Sai Baba can say that I'm Sai Baba. Nobody else. Nobody can do it. Why? Because it's only he who can vouch for himself. Bhagavan is Bhagavan is Bhagavan is Bhagavan. Nobody can take his place. Supreme Master. As a 12-year-old, I looked up and I realized who I was looking at. And he declared it. In that interview, my grandmother's illness he described in detail. And how do I know? Knowing that my grandmother probably might not make it, they actually took us children to see her one day before she passed off. And she was breathing heavily, very heavy breathing. We went there, we saw her. She was obviously unconscious. We came back home. Then when Swami called us, he described her breathing exactly the way she was, how she was breathing. And I was stunned because, and Swami never came to the hospital, didn't see her, nothing. He was telling exactly. And then there was something that happened in that last day or so. My father suddenly suggested, why don't we all sing bhajans? And so they sat around her bed. And who was it? My father, my mother, my aunt. And they were singing bhajans. Swami then said, shall I tell you something? He looked at my father. You started to sing bhajans. Moment you sang bhajans, she was in such happiness because she could hear your bhajans. See, she was in a coma, but she could hear it. And then he said, and this is something stunning. He said, you stopped the bhajan to go to the bathroom. Who keeps a tab of that? He said, you wanted to go to the toilet and you stopped the bhajan. He said, the moment you did that, she was thrown into agony. Oh, why did they stop the bhajan? She was so happy hearing you all sing. Then he said, you came back and you started singing. She was so happy. He said, as soon as my uncle came, within about 10-15 minutes, she passed away. She was waiting for him to come so she could acknowledge. Something similar happened, with me and my father, actually. In August, we rushed from here. I rushed along with my brother from California. And my father was in the ICU. And what happened was he was being kept alive. And my middle brother, who's a doctor, as soon as I landed, he rushed me home, put all the luggage, and within literally 5 minutes out of there, I went straight to the hospital. And he said, look, I don't think he'll last. So we went up. I gently touched my father on his left shoulder in the ICU. 1 hour after that, he passed off. So what happened, for my uncle also happened to me. So that is, very, very close encounter. Then what happened in 1976, we went to Puttaparthi, and then our Upanayanam had not yet been done by that time. Then whole family went in, and Swami saw us. And this time it was not just, the 5 of us, meaning my mother, father, and 3 brothers. My aunt, who's the older sister of my father, her husband and their children, except their first daughter, they were all in that interview room. There, Swami began to discuss situations one by one. My grandfather had a pad, a big, full-scale pad, pen, and he had written a whole bunch of points. Swami knows every point. So he was telling my grandfather, first point, right. And, and he would address it with my grandfather. Looked, oh yes, Swami, yes. There was no doubt as to what, was. He was telling him, okay. So then this whole Swami actually then came to us. Then he looked at us. And see, we were all still small kids, right? We were not really big. He looked at me and my instant next brother, which is, Kishore. Then he's telling my mother, these 2 fellows are very clever. They're very playful. That youngest boy, he's full of love. He was making conversation, basically, okay? And then they decided, okay, we will have the Upanayam of both these boys performed in August of this year. Now, actually, it's very unusual. In 1976, April 4th, my grandmother had passed off. Now, same year, you don't perform any major functions because my father is her son. And in the son's house, these things don't happen, for at least 1 year. But Swami crossed that. And because it is Bhagavan himself, God himself, he crossed that threshold and said, no, I'll do it. And so he came home. And this is that visit. So as soon as Swami pulled home, there, and you see his, if you... So, his car, I don't know if you can see his, MEE 999. This is very famous with Bhagavan. That number 9, it would always add up. As soon as he came, my grandfather wanted to garland him. I want to tell you something very important here. We had a family priest. He didn't think much of Swami, and he didn't come, though he said he'll come. What happened that morning was my grandfather had gone to Vrindavan to bring Swami home. Now, when he went home, or rather when he went to Swami, what happened was he went into Swami's bungalow. Then they all came out, Swami came out, and the whole bunch of people standing around. One of them was Brahmasri Kamavdhani Garu, very, very famous, Mahapandit. And my grandfather looked at Swami and said, Swami, it would be good if this man can come, because I don't know why, it would be Swami looked at him and said, get into the car. He looked. Kamavdhani Garu was not supposed to come. They had all just come for darshan as usual that morning, that's all. Of all things, Swami said, get into the car. And in that car that arrived was Kamavdhani Garu coming. Our priest didn't turn up. And of all things, he became the priest that day for us. And this is the function. This is how it started. So he is sitting with his back to the camera. Our good fortune cannot be described. See, this is Bhagavan at his very best, right? We don't even understand it. My father, my mother, and the two of us, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother standing behind. And Swami was actually sitting right in front of us like this, as you see him. Next to him, my grandfather, right here. Behind him is my cousin, and there's another cousin. This cousin Swami used to call Dharmaraju, because he had played the role of Dharmaraju in that particular, there was a play that Swami had organized, and then he had played the role of Dharmaraju. From then he became Dharmaraj. Then Swami, very graciously, as Kamavdhani Garu was chanting the mantra, he said, inkani mantra al challe. He makes a joke of it. And then he got up, and then he moved his hand, that's what you're seeing. And then he materialized, the dhanjam, the sacred thread. My mother said actually something miraculous. She said actually she could only see one thread or one set of threads. Swami from that one set pulled out another in front of her eyes. Literally it came out. As he pulled, it just began to come out. And then first I was initiated, as you can see. And then after that, my younger brother was initiated. And it was done, Swami did it very interestingly. He went one way, he repeated the Gayatri, made me repeat it after him thrice. And he did it for me, and then he did it for my brother. The sacredness of that occasion I am unable to even convey in words. As a young child of 12 years, I could feel it. It's not a feeling of I'm special. When God blesses you, there is something untellable. I'm not able to put it into words. It is so powerful. And what I didn't know at that time was He had made me his in that. See, there are people who will follow the world, and then there are people who will follow him. When you think of him constantly, you're following him, good or bad. This is something to understand. You're not going to do good all the time, you're not going to do bad all the time. You're going to live your life trying to escape both. It's almost like good and bad have got their tentacles into you. You're actually unloosening them so that you can get free and leave. But that beginning has to come, or that situation, call it what you will, has to come from Bhagavan. That was the moment. Now something happened, and okay, so I should point out, over here, Swami, you can clearly see on my head, that there is, grains of rice he was putting. Swami didn't take it from anything, that was offered to him. He just began to move his hand and it started to fall, without stopping. It just kept, as he kept doing it, it kept coming and coming and coming and it wouldn't stop. That is how you see on my head there is so much of rice. That is how it was. What a feeling. How can I tell you what feeling that is? As a 12-year-old, he opened me. In my way, in whatever way you want to call it, to have love for him. And I didn't realize it fully at the time. Then he sat down, and you can clearly see who are all here, My parents, obviously, the two of us, Kama Dhanikaru in the front. My mother's older sister, my father's older sister, and behind, I think, is actually Viyapuralu, to my Viyapuralu co-sister-in-law, co-in-law, to my grandmother, meaning her second son's mother-in-law, standing behind, partially seen. And then Swami, as usual, he makes his jokes. So he had a go at my father, He said, I don't know if Suryanarayana really chants Gayatri, in front of everybody, And he said, I don't think he really knows Gayatri. Do you know Gayatri? He asked my father. My father's been initiated and everything has been done, but he's having a go at him. Question is why? See, there is always karma in somebody's life. God has one terrific power. Only God. And that too, Dattatreya Swami, whose direct incarnation is Swami. What is that power? With his words, he can remove your karma. If you have something impeding your spiritual progress, just words, he can remove that karma. That's how he did it for my father. And then he began to, he gave us a discourse on Gayatri, Swami. And then he basically told us this, and he left me with, he said, look, I've told you a lot, you may or may not remember. But he said, I want you to now keep this one feeling. Don't be like that boy. He was going to America for higher studies. This is what he said. His mother, she had tears in her eyes and said, my son, today you're going to America. That to 1970s, right? Communication's not so good. Who knows what will happen to you? But you should not forget to chant your Gayatri. What this fellow did, Swami said, he wrote Gayatri once and put her ditto 107 times. Don't do that. He said, do not do that. He put ditto in a book, he wrote Gayatri once and then he put ditto, No. He said, then he told me in Telugu, ఒకే ఒక్కసారి చెప్పు ఆయన మనసి పూర్తిగా చెప్పు అంతే నాకు కావాలి ఇంకేం అక్కర్లేదు మనసు పూర్తిగా నన్ను తలుసుకుని గాయత్రి చెప్పు నాకు అంతే కావాలి with your heart full chant the Gayatri. That's all I require. I don't require 108. What he meant there was you have to have at least one Gayatri in your 108 that might come out in that fashion. See, you get into a state, you can't subtly go there. So I misunderstood it for most of my childhood. But because you're a child, you can almost attain that state pretty easy. Because you're not thinking anything, you're going there. I would think of Swami, chant it and keep quiet. It didn't affect me, meaning to say, or put it this way, it benefited me. It always benefited me. And he gave this discourse, the better part of 45 minutes to us. My grandfather wanted to record the discourse. He bought a tape recorder, and I think you can see it in his hand. You can see it in his hand, right? Swami told him, listen, don't record. Don't record. He didn't listen to Swami and put it on. Okay? Nothing came. Then we were allowed to garland Swami. And then what Swami did was he removed the garlands and put it on both of us. Then what he did, this is the famous picture, where what he said was, oh, you know what? Picture తీయండి అన్నారు. He said, take the photograph. పెళ్లి చూపులప్పుడు అందరికి చూపించండి. When you guys are getting married, go and show it to everybody. Then, we were allowed to give him Harati. We sat down for lunch with Bhagwan. And Kamavadhani Garu sat right next to us and initiated us into Brahmarpanam and Aham Vaishvanarubhatva, basically. This is, the two slideshows I wanted to show you. Just a few other points I could probably mention. Post this time, what happened was, and just to complete this thing about this picture, just, if you look at this picture next to Kamavadhani Garu, and if you just go to the right of it, it was a clear wall. Swami came and stood against it just like a family member, with his hands on his back, and he was leaning against the wall, watching everybody eat just like one of us, like a family member. That feeling, again, I can't tell you, because he was not saying, I'm actually the supreme person, unreachable. No. I'm well within your grasp. Okay? And there's another very personal experience I can share. Once I came here in the 1990s, I used to go running because I'm an athlete and I used to keep running for a long time. And what happened was, in 1992, I had a very, very, very severe foot problem. I was getting this plantar fasciitis, problem as I was running. I didn't know it. I went to a podiatrist and she said, you have flat feet and you have this and that. It continued. I was, going to some of these people, and what they would do is they'd give me one of these steroid injections, to get rid of the pain. It worked for a few years, and then after some time it stopped working. Then I didn't know what to do. I went finally to one very good podiatrist, and he said, listen, I'll have to, do surgery on you. And then he said, you'll have to, for 6 months, sit back and do nothing. He said, you can walk, you can do everything else, but you can't run. That was very painful for me. I didn't know what to do. Then I wrote a detailed letter to my father. And my father took that letter to Swami and gave it to him. See, I would say in the next few days, I had a dream of Swami. Swami came in the dream. He came right up to me. I was sitting, a bunch of devotees. మీ నాన్నగారు నాకు లెటర్ రాసి ఇచ్చారే, ఏమైంది? Your father wrote a letter to me and gave it. What has happened? I said, Swami, I have foot pain. He said, show me your feet. I showed him. I was sitting cross-legged. Literally, I turned my feet up. He pulled his robe up in the dream, took his foot, put it on the place on my foot where it actually pains, and gave me a press. In the dream, I groaned in pain. I literally shouted, because that's exactly where the pain was. He said, show me the other foot. I put it. Again, he did the same thing. Again, I shouted. Then he said, okay, I've cured you. there was something else that happened. I got up. This is the most unforgettable thing. As I got up from my round about the waist, this here, beautiful feeling started as I was getting up. It went through my legs, through my feet and out. And I put my foot down that morning, first time, on the floor, I had no pain. It happened right here in the US. So then who's God? Who's Bhagwan? Is he somebody who's sitting in Prashant Nilayam? Is he somebody who was only, present just because you can see him? No, God is now. God is all the time now. Then, so, this is all me, right? I'm now telling you all this. No, I explained it to my wife. My wife was in India at the time. And I explained it to my parents. Oh, yeah, they were all very happy, they were all very, very happy. But in the year 2004, what happened was my grandfather was talking in front of Swami. And it was because Swami had actually gone to Kodaikanal, and in that trip he did not take my grandfather. Normally he would take my grandfather on any trip he went, but that year he didn't. My grandfather had become old, found getting around very difficult, and he had to have somebody with him all the time to assist him. And so what he said was, Gopal, stay in Vrindavan until I come back. My grandfather got bored because he had nothing to do. So when Swami came back, obviously he knew. So he called my grandfather and he said, tell all the students all about the incidents in your families. So all of us have had experiences, not just me. So my grandfather began to talk and Swami was listening, sitting next to him. Then my situation came. And then Swami, my grandfather said, in my grandson's dreams, Swami, pressed his foot on his, on my grandson's foot. Swami stopped him and said, hey, wait. I'll tell you how I pressed on his foot. I'll show you how I pressed. And he showed the entire gathering how he pressed on my foot. Right there. If at all you wanted any confirmation that he had done it, there it was. 6 years later. My miracle had happened in 1998. He was confirming it in 2004. Next thing you know, my father ran. In those days we used to have STD booths, because the cell phone was still not good in India and they were not as popular. So what happened was he ran, to the STD booth and called me and said, you know what just happened? Not half an hour ago. And I was sleeping. He woke me up. This is what Swami just said. That was my confirmation, and what a thrill to get a call. Swami confirming for you what he had done for you. It was one thing for me to say it, Swami said it. Then in the year 1997, my father contracted lung cancer. And this happened in a very, very gradual way, not a good way. I'll cut a very long story very short. He was traveling from between Bangalore and Calcutta. But then I think in 1998, finally he came back for good, my father. Because the job he had in Calcutta, he finished. Then when he came back, he was having this problem. What would happen is he would have fever in the morning, by evening he's fine. And he went to our family doctor. That man said, no, here you take some small medicine. He said, look, there's something wrong. I don't know what's wrong. They consulted some of the specialists and they said, listen, you go in for a biopsy. And they did a chest scan and all that, and they found a patch on the left lung at that time. And then they didn't know what it was. They thought it could be just a regular patch. So the first biopsy they did came back benign. And said, oh, but then the second biopsy came back as positive. In between this business of benign and not benign or malignant, benign and malignant, Swami had, because Swami would normally call my grandfather on his birthdays for a small interview or something. My parents had gone to Swami in December, and Swami saw my grandfather, looked at my grandfather, even materialized Vibhuti and gave it to him, and he said, "You have it." In spite of all that, this happened. Then my father was obviously very upset and all that. But then he remembered, who will save you? Only Bhagwan. So what happened was, he was in the physician who had sent him for the biopsy was actually right there when they found out it was malignant. He said, "Sir, I have to take you right now and operate on you and remove the patch so that it doesn't spread. Can you please get yourself ready right now?" My father said, "It's okay, I'll see you in a minute. I got to go home and take care of certain things. I just can't come like that. And I'll let you know. That's all." He left, he came home, told my mother, "This is malignant. We're going now to Puttaparthi," and that's it. They closed home, shut shop, instantly closed the house and left for Puttaparthi. Now Swami knows everything, and my father, he went there to see Swami. Swami, ultimately Swami gave him Vibhuti in the lines, because what had happened was, since my father had consulted physicians, Swami said, "What are they all saying?" And my father said in the line, "Swami, you have to cure me. Nobody can cure me." See, Swami is, pure love. And he just, when my father held out his hand like this, Swami took his right hand, put it into my father's right hand, said, in Telugu, he said, "Kanile." My father, from the beginning, was Swami's pet. The moment he saw my father, Swami would start smiling, because he couldn't help it. He knows my father's nature. So, he said, "Kanile." My father says, moment that happened, moment his hand was caught like that, from Swami's hand to his hand, he could feel a sense of tremendous well-being traveling upwards through his own hands, going to that affected part in the left lung and starting to cure it. Think about it. You are being shown by the Divine Master, the Supreme Person, "I'm taking care of you." And it's going to that spot and making you feel that spot where you're actually having cancer. He began to cure him. Now, Swami only did that, or put it this way, he did that physically to my father, said nothing and went away. He gave him Vibhuti and all that. And then he appeared in my dream, of all things. And then he says, "Your father will have to be here in Puttaparthi and I have to see him every day. He's not going to go home. And I have to keep seeing him every day. There will be one day when I will tell him he can go home, and then that day he can go home." So I conveyed all that to my father. Imagine, Swami is right there, he can tell him he did not do that. No, he did it through me. The power of the third person, I suppose. So I told my father, he's staying with my grandfather. He wanted him to go to super specialty hospital. I said, "You forget all that. This situation is way past anything curable. You get yourself out of that place. You go down, find another room." I told him this. No, I never talk like that to him. I said, "I don't know what you do. I want you to get out of there and get yourself another room and stay there and go directly to Bhagwan. And if you don't have to visit my grandfather, don't visit, because mamakaram, attachment. No. You can't do anything and make mistakes in that whole deal. You have your direct contact with Bhagwan, keep free of my grandfather." Now, my father couldn't walk 50 paces without having to sit somewhere because he couldn't breathe. Of all things, he started running for darshan. And what do you know? Swami was coming every day, looking for him, where is he? Seeing him and then going away. The volunteers there, everybody saw that. They told my father, okay, we'll give you a special place, you sit there only. They arranged a nice, stool and a chair and all that, you sit there only. So Swami would come every day, look at him and go away. Then Swami went off to Vrindavan, so my father followed him. Because my grandfather has a cottage there, he could stay there and go for darshan. You come out and go for darshan. Now, in those lines, see, Bhagavan is always true. He will never, ever say something to you and tell you something, or do something else. He came in the lines. One day, he told my father, I'm going tomorrow to Kodaikanal, you don't come. Now you go home and stay in your home. What he told me is exactly what he told my father. Now you go home and stay. Because the air over there will not suit your lungs. My father's recovery was complete. Swami gave my father 25 years from that point. Please remember, please realize, 1998 to 2022, almost 23 years. 25 years, 24, 25 years. If you look at the time period, it's actually 25 years. He cured him. If you want, I'll end here because this is 5 minutes. Just some parting thoughts. I mean, if at all, I chant the Gayatri 2000 times every weekend. I do it. I actually found it's not enough, but at least 2000 times every weekend I do it. I sit down consciously and do it. Why do I do this? I pray for everybody. Why do I pray for everybody? Because everybody is me, I am everybody. I'm not different. Why is that important? Our current situation in this world is not good. Today you all know there is a woke problem running free. What is true is considered untrue. What is untrue is considered true. This has become a problem everywhere, and universities are spreading it in this country. We cannot be like that. We have to protect our young people and tell them what you see in front, you can't take it face value, and behind that you also have to go and examine and really look at the truth. Your feelings in the end don't matter. The truth alone matters, facts matter. We have to pray for everybody. We literally have to pray for everybody. We have to take care of our children at home. We cannot take anything for granted. I'm talking to so many people. I'm very happy. It's, and I'll tell you why. I've also spoken to bigger gatherings. That's not the point. See, who is there is here for a reason, who knows what reason? I don't know. But somewhere, somehow, this will help somebody. I'm not sure. It is my Swami called, therefore I came, that's it. There is no question. So, when Brother Baradi called, there was no question, I was going to come. There was, how can I say I won't come? And perhaps the one who's benefited most in all of this is me. I don't know. This is how I feel. But in saying me, I'm not talking of a person called Gopal. I've had to develop feelings of universalness, of being part of light and that light being part of everybody. That's how you pray in Gayatri. Otherwise, if you just pray for yourself, it has no meaning, and that limited prayer actually has no effect. Swami made this statement several times. One day he told my youngest brother who joined his college, the first two of us, because we were so close, and you see all those pictures, we didn't get into his college. There were so many other people who had to get a chance. So Swami gave those people a chance. We, the two of us, we had a slightly different path, but doesn't mean we are not his. So one day Swami said, listen, you guys are making a mistake. You sit down and you pray for yourselves, your family. No good. You have to pray for everybody. So I coined a small little prayer before I do anything. Swami, I'm praying for this world, this universes, all universes and beyond. I'm taking in all the sin and sending out pure love in all directions. And at the end of my prayer, I say, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba Arpanamastu. I have given everything back to you. So in the morning, when we get up, we all say, right? Sarva Karmanam Saiswar Arpanam. In the night also, Sarva Karmanam Saiswar Arpanam. Why? We give everything back to him. We don't want good, we don't want bad. We only want our own state. That state is Bhagavan. We want to return to that state. How do we return to that state? By making sure we help others. That is the way we go back. It is not just going back. Realizing that we have to help everybody in all ways. If supposing, this I'm here today, after all, brother Barade and, they were looking for somebody who had cancelled out. Okay, so you cancelled out. Who influenced whom? Bhagavan, right? How is Bhagavan influencing people? When we pray to him properly, then he gives chances. I call this a great chance to share my experience with all of you. And the word experience, I won't share. I would say situations with Swami. Experiences is not a good word. Situations with Swami. Physical situations, many situations, and they're continuing to happen. It's not like, they have ever stopped happening. They're continuing to happen all the time. I find it, Swami's, and that's where I suppose I should end this. Very important to know that all of us should have a universal feeling while praying, so that we are benefiting everybody in all ways. And remember, even if you say you got Kaivalyam, which means complete release from your births, and you merge, it's a bit of an illusion because you're still everybody else. When you become light, you are still everybody else and part of everybody else. So if they are not doing well, you're not doing well. If they are doing good, you are doing good. But more importantly, if they turn spiritual, then it's our great, and it's the greatest thing that can happen, the best thing that can happen, because then we would have lived by Swami's word. Sai-Ram.
Sai-Ram. So before we conclude our session, I'd like to see if anybody has a question for brother before we move on. Also for the people on Zoom, we have a lot of people today on Zoom. That's why we see less people here. So anybody has a question to ask brother, we'll be happy to have you here. So. Sure, 1 second. Let me.
Yes.
No. When you talked about your father's factory, what was the item that he was manufacturing?
He was manufacturing various auto parts.
Oh, auto parts.
Auto parts. For Ashok Leyland and a few other companies in Madras that he knew in those days.
Yes.
One more question, please, Sarah.
The last part you mentioned about praying for the world, and then you went on to the end, was something I would like to share about. It happened yesterday. And I'm one of the peoples who believe in that.
Actually, why don't you come up here and speak? Huh? We can't hear anything.
I don't want. That's okay. The reason I'm asking you this question in public is I could have taken that question downstairs. I want this to be known to people that it's high time we Sai devotees start praying for others, and I talk on issues of these in my center. I used to do this when my kids were until high school, and I was an unconventional person, and people didn't like it because that's not. Why are you bringing politics? Why are you bringing in issues from the world? But if you're a Swami devotee, isn't that your duty to go outside and be part of it? What's the point coming here and you can't even get out of the building and face the world? Then what are you teaching your children? So I always was made SSC one group, and I used to teach the children and the parents, more importantly, the parents. That's what you're supposed to do. And yesterday I came across a very powerful information how the world is working. I mean, it's beyond comprehension. I've been getting this information. And I kept telling Swami, is there any way how can we change this world? Ukraine, Biden went there. And that's literally everything that's going on all over the world. So, and you talking was like, yes, what you're doing is the right thing. Just keep praying, praying, praying. At some point, something will happen. And I have seen that every time I pray, something happens globally. The next day, the same day evening, it just happens. So my only wish is more and more people talk about it. Side devotees are like don't get that thing. That's not your job. That's not what we do here. So to hear it from you was like assurance from him saying, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And keep doing it.
Yeah. See, it's like this. Problem in life, and I'm facing it, and this is happening everywhere. They want you to conform, to certain things or changes. I simply said, no, I'm going to tell you the truth as I see it. If you don't like it, that's your problem. But in saying that also, I've had to realize, myself, you got to speak with love. You've got to feel with love. People will only change with love. I think that's the problem that's happened in a lot of, say, universities and other places. There's a feeling of competition that's pushed. So because of which you feel there's cutthroat competition, and you feel like you're trying to survive. But to me, the path of love is what is very essential. How do you do that? One has to constantly be feeling that love. It's not easy, is it? Because someone says something. The question is, how do you, if there's a bitter response, there's no point. But if you were thinking of Bhagavan, if you were feeling his love, maybe a better answer would come, or his answer would come, because you were trying to feel his love. Our thought, our words, our deeds should match. That is known as not just Chitta Suddhi, but that is, according to Swami, the way to reach him. See, I had a dream once, and I've had several dreams ever since Swami left. And in that, he's been teaching me, and he continues to teach me. One of the things that came out in one of those dreams was, he made me talk, and believe it or not, I didn't even have this many people in the audience. And Swami is sitting right next to me. I began to talk, and he said, no. He said, feel again. Feel again. I started again, no. Then, as soon as I felt his love, yes, now speak. And then Swami said, wait, I'll now tell you. The only thing in life for anyone is your thought, your word, your deed should match. And just before that event, just before Swami showed me that, he showed me a disciple of his, a lady disciple in Telugu. I mean, this lady, I don't even know who this lady is. In the highest language, she began to describe how people got Kaivalyam, or, the release from bondage thousands and thousands of years ago. And in each yuga, she began to describe in Telugu. And I heard that. I couldn't even talk like that. And Swami quietly sat there listening, and he was nodding his head, very. So in Treta Yugam, one method. In the case of Dwapara Yugam, one method. Kali Yugam, the conditions are not there. Your problem is you don't have very good conditions to conduct, yajnas. And even if you say they have results, very tough, because the person who's doing that yajna, or the people doing it, are not always unquestionable, and today everybody is after money. Okay, so there's a problem. Then what do? How do you then, normal people like us, people who are classic nobodies, after all, he's, made us pick up Rudram Chamakam, for example, Swami. He's teaching us Gayatri. He's telling us you chant Gayatri. Keep going on Gayatri. I've had, very, very, very deep, shall I say, shift of consciousness ever since I've, started to chant Gayatri. Because what has happened, the most important thing is I have been transformed. And I've been transformed gradually. You can't do anything suddenly. You have to be gradually transformed so that you're not injured. A person cannot be injured. Very gently, correctly, with that divine hand to be transformed. Gayatri is the classic method. Why wouldn't you do it, actually? It's a question to ask people. Why wouldn't you do it? It is so easy, so beautiful. And by the way, there are so many Gayatris you can take up. Whatever, you want. See, Ishta Devata. So people say, I like Ganapati. Okay, then take Ganapati Gayatri. If you like Swami Gayatri, you have Sai Gayatri. If you like regular Gayatri, you have regular Gayatri. You want Gayatri of Divine Mother, you have that also. Take some Gayatri, but do something. But pray for everybody. I'm praying for the light which is within everybody. And requesting that light not just to transform me, but to transform everybody. Why? Because in living in this world, I also pray for their change, because then it is pleasant to live. Otherwise, very difficult to live.
There was a question on Zoom for you. What is the beginning of mantra or closing mantra you chant for your Gayatri? And if possible, actually chant the whole thing for us.
Yeah. See, for Gayatri, it's a bit personal in the sense that there are mantras that came about from my young childhood, and what was appropriate to me came to me. Okay, there were many mantras and it settled in a particular way, if you will. I don't know if there's a way to describe it. But just broadly to say, I chant, the first thing is nowadays that sentence I told you, Swami, I'm praying for this world, this universe, all universes and beyond. I'm praying, I take in all the sense, send out pure love in all directions. And then I start with Om 21 times. Then I go into Ganapati praying. Next, I do a little bit Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheswara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. And then just first line of Vishnu Sahasranam, Suklam Bharadram Vishnu, Shashi Uranam Chaturbhayam Prasanna Jayat Sarvingam Shanti. Then dive straight into Gayatri. I have 3 Gayatris that I keep kind of going around. The Gayatri that Swami taught me was regular Gayatri. Om Bhava Suvatarvarenyam. Then we were all taught Sai Gayatri. Swami came in a dream and taught me another Gayatri for me to, and that is Durga Gayatri. To Durga, so what is Durga Gayatri? It actually purifies you. For that purification, so you're working, daily, you run every morning, you don't have the time to pray. Then when do you pray? Your big numbers have to come during the weekend. Why? When you do during the weekend, it sets you up for the next week. But if you do just Sahasra Gayatri, it's not enough. So if you do 108 times per day, that's 5 days, you're doing 5 times 108. I just simply doubled it, and then I realized as I was doing still not enough. I went 1 more 1,000. But that comes on a per person basis. I can't say that you should do what I am doing. Therefore, be true to yourself. Sit down and you should feel what you feel. There's no use. And there's another thing. I mean, I was taught this by Bhagavan very personally, very much, friends. He used to always say, look, what you feel, you do. But be within the framework of what I have. Those 9 steps we all talk about. Swami talked about for all, everybody. But even there, you should, wherever you're less and more. So the question of your practice comes into play. What are you doing? How are you living? How are you thinking? What are you doing? No use running after people, because you have to do what you have to do. And you have to have the faith that you can do it. I mean, that is, to me, that is very important, but just to answer your question, there's something very important. See, a lot of what is happening today, outside, I was feeling very bad about it. Then I asked, who's there on the other side, so to speak? No, it is myself. There is nobody else. So then why should I feel bad? What can I do to help? First, prayer. That prayer transforms you as long as you're praying for those people. Then when you are transformed, at least to some level, at that time, if you run into such people, a proper answer will emerge. At that time, have that faith. But if you got to walk with confidence. You've got to have faith in yourself. And with Bhagavan's grace, it will. He always protects. If you say a situation is difficult. So I faced plenty of them. I'm continuing to face them, by the way. Nothing is easy. You're given homework on the weekends by your own work. Think of that. I mean, it's not like, they let you go on the weekends. That's okay. That's his work. So whatever work I'm doing, for example, I consider now to be his work. It's been so for some time, for quite some time. Who's employing you? God is employing you. The man you say your boss. No. Above him, inside him is actually the real boss. Right? It's all temporary. And it's just a game. So play the game. It's okay. Follow the master. How do you follow the master? The light within. Follow the light within. How do you follow that? The 9 steps Swami gave us. Enough. Chant Gayatri or do Rudram Chamakam, whatever it is. That everyone has a slightly different, shall we say, bent of mind or a tendency. Follow that, whatever it is. Some people love bhajan. One of the greatest things my father taught me is this. He set an example. Imagine in 1960s, as a child, I remember, he would come home having worked the full day. First thing, most people will go and sleep, He'll have a bath, wear his, pancha and all that, bare chested, come sit in the Devud Gadi, God's room. We had a harmonium there, he'll take it out, he'll start singing. He didn't tell me, you come and sit with me. He didn't tell my brother or my mother. We just gradually joined. He liked bhajan, he set the example. And through that, we all became better. God's grace is simplest method, in my opinion, is actually bhajan. And by the way, all my father told me one thing, very, very important. I can probably share it with all of you. So we do Gayatri, I do Gayatri. At the end of that Gayatri and all my prayers, I sing a bhajan. I'm all alone, I sing a bhajan. Swami said, when you sing the bhajan, it's like the covering to the offering that you gave me. You're keeping it safe. Bhajan is that covering, it seems, that cloth that covers that offering that you gave him. So your prayer and all that is that plate underneath with, with all those various items. And then the cover is the bhajan. And my father always practiced it. He would do a different kind of prayer as he changed, as we went on. And then what happened was, at the end he'll sing a bhajan. I join him, I don't join him, nothing. He'll finish it and then go. Finally, I asked him a few years ago, why are you singing that bhajan? He told me the reason. Swami said this openly, during a discourse. So from that time, he's been doing it. And I find it's a very, very good thing to do, because your prayer is well protected, and all prayers are received by God, trust me, but there is an inner feeling I can't describe, when it is done proper.
Are you sure?
Ram, can I ask one quick question, please, brother?
Brother, go ahead.
Yeah.
Ram? Yeah, actually two things. One is when you're describing Swami explaining different avatar in Brother Venkatamuni's house. I missed that part. Briefly, you can touch on that. The second thing is how would you able to remember Swami's dream so vividly? Many times I have dream and when I wake up, I don't remember a thing. So that's something, maybe you have a technique. Please, thank you. Sairam.
So I'll answer the second question first. I can't tell you how I remember all those dreams. This is Bhagwan's will. There was a stage in the 70s, especially around about 76. I had a dream almost every day, whether I visited Swami or not. And Swami always took the example of, people, in this manner, right? You have a massive magnet. You have all these iron filings. You take off the dirt, instantly all those iron filings come and they're attracted to the magnet. So a lot of dirt was removed by that divine hand. That is how I'm able to remember, those dreams. Otherwise, there's nothing individually that I have done to be able to do anything like that. One always has to realize, and this is a very good prayer always to Bhagavan, please let me love you more. This is the prayer actually to Bhagavan. Please let me love you more. Please, clean me up so that I'm loving you more. This is how it is. The avatars that Swami discussed, they were partial avatars. For example, Yesu or Muhammad or many saints. He was, you could call it anyone, Vasishtha, Jamadagni or Vishwamitra. And he mentioned many great modern masters, including Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And he said, I'm still beyond all of them. I'm way beyond. I'm the ultimate Lord at whose feet everything is laid down. Finally, all prayers reach me. That is Bhagavan. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. And thank you so much, by the way. What you have today shared has evoked I think, brother, on Zoom, you may have to mute yourself, otherwise there'll be a feedback. Thank you. So, Brother Gopal, thank you so much for opening up that inner vision in us, because what you have described today is very profound. It touches our hearts, and I think you genuinely have been experimenting with this, going deep inside and practicing. I think this is very, very powerful. Thank you for taking the time. With all that humility, you come and shared with us all your personal moments with Swami. And one final question is, as the generations are passing from your grandfather to your father to 90s to now, there is so much of the velocity of communication that is increasing, the medium in which the communications among people is increasing, and online activity, and the modes of ringing a bell on you. It used to be a simple ghanta and then a doorbell, and then a telephone came in. Now with mobile smartphones and multiple channels of interference, how engaged are you in those aspects, and are you relinquishing yourself from there? How are you handling it?
This is a warning I'm now giving out to all of you. Listen to me. I have the greatest objection to any personal accounts being created on Facebook, Twitter, you name it. I do not indulge in them. I have never indulged in them. I will never indulge in them. There's a great reason. I have done security. I have done IT security, and I know how vulnerable that makes you. If at all, you want to take care of yourself and your family, keep them off of these particular mediums. If you, okay, so a Sai Center being on Facebook and all that, that is all okay. As long as, again, you have to have good policing. You have to sit there and make sure you do not get inappropriate comments, or you don't make inappropriate comments. There's all kinds of things that has to happen. Just to run that is itself another job. Okay? And nobody, and the persons or people who do it, you cannot thank them enough. If you are doing it, thank you very much. But personally, never, never, never get onto these mediums. The other thing is, keep yourself down to one email account, maybe two, one to recover from, and that's about it. And there is a WhatsApp group, maybe one or two groups I indulge in. I keep myself off because I need time for myself. And the amount of work that I do, I'm sorry, I mean, there is so much work. I can't indulge, going on with these communications. And there's another point to make. Fine, so there are communications, so what? I don't care. To the level that something is essential, you can do that. All non-essential stuff should be thrown away. We must spend time communicating or trying to communicate in the more basic, more divine manner. If you are in communication with yourself as light, what more do you need? As soon as that pathway is opened correctly, you don't need all these. Nothing. After all, what do you need? Actually, it was a joke, I mean, sometimes if you saw it, it felt like a joke. Somebody would walk in, in front of Swami. Swami will start talking about that person. And it's like, oh, really? I mean, so you really know him. Then the point was, oh, yeah, because I'm light, I can have perfect identification. I know him. Now, we all spend time on all these devices. Something I've done consciously. To get away from, you lose yourself. You will, there's no point. And sometimes, I want some information, I want to look up something interesting. Okay, fine, go and look at it, spend a little time. But that's it, I'm off. After that, back to my practice. I got some work to do. Otherwise, just sit down, relax, do nothing. Think of Bhagwan, be happy. Otherwise, develop something else that you should be developing. Maybe there's always work we have to do personally. I can't believe that you don't have one day is not enough. There's always something to do for me. I got so much work to do. People who are responsible, people who care, they will do all this. You know what I'm talking about. People who are not aware and who have not been properly initiated, that's a real worry. Again, back to my prayers. I pray for everybody so that everyone gets better.
Can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Saira.
So, Sairam, Brother Gopal, it's a wonderful, wonderful talk. You can see we are way past our time, but time well spent. And also, as we know, we are having the Samarpan program every month. And just to get a speaker itself is a journey for us. Just like you said, how we landed with you, same way for us. We have somebody else designated, and then they just drop off for whatever reason. And then out of nowhere, we get a speaker, again, by Swami's grace, and comes such a wonderful talk. I mean, so that's a wonderful thing about Samarpan that we really don't know. And you've been with us here for so many years in this area, we don't know that, and that's an aspect of Samarpan which exceedingly is popular with us. We have a lot of people today online. I wish they were all here because we have wonderful prasadam after this. I mean, they still can come by if they want, if they're nearby. But to answer some of the questions is that this program is recorded, as we know, and it will be published by us. So if anybody has missed the initial part or the middle part, you can always come back and revisit this. The second part is that your experience has so many parallels with my own experience. I'm also from Madras in the 60s and so on. So I can relate to you, and I see some people saying that online chat also, that they could relate very well to what your experiences are. And as far as the Gayatri experience, you have spoken a lot about so many things, but one of the Gayatri experience you said when Swami told your father about it. I mean, I saw one of the other interviews, Swami in the Gayatri is telling the boy, you know, your father, and the father is sitting next to him, and he's saying, your father doesn't believe in all of this. He thinks this is a waste of money, waste of time, you know, and then all these things you forget. But you got to understand, your father is wrong. And father is sitting right next to them, you know, and then he's saying, tell your father, this is not a waste of money. Going to cinema is a waste of money. Going to restaurant is a waste of money. This is not a waste of money. So that is the kind of teaching Swami does in Gayatri between, you know, he teaches for the children as well as the elders. So that is a very good experience you had. I mean, I can go on and on, but at this point we'll end up with this. So we thank you again for such a short, literally couple of days. That's what it was. I mean, we had other people come in, and we also had another person who also is a Swami's tabla student. And now we have another tabla student who came in. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience for us. Thank you again. And we'd like you to come by by the Swami's chair if you don't mind. And Brother Vankat Kanapalli will felicitate you for yes, brother.
Oh, this.
Yes, that's a tradition we have for, yeah. So thank you again, Brother Gopal. And with this, we will have the Aarti festival for you. I mean, you can do the Maharti, brother. You can take the shawl. After this, after the Maharti, we request everybody, including people on Zoom, if you can come by, please come by. We have a prasadam downstairs. Okay? Saram.